Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ruben Uncut. Today, I'm talking about The Accountant 2. Actually, I'm talking about The Accountant 1 and 2. Now, I was lucky enough to see the special tax day presentation of The Accountant 2, which means I'm actually getting to review this one before its primary opening. Now, what's going to happen here is I'm going to review The Accountant 2 in a brief, non-spoilery way, and then I'm going to analyze the autistic representation in both films. What I like about it, what the films do good, and what they could do better. The things that the Accountant movies, I should note, could do better are small, but also a little bit odd. The Accountant 2 is the sequel to the first Accountant movie, if you couldn't guess by the title. And if you couldn't guess by the title, then I'm going to guess that you are not autistic. Because this is important. Autism is at the basic core of the Accountant films, because the Accountant films follow a gentleman who is very low support autistic. Now, in a minor thing that I have to, take a couple points away from both films for is that Ben Affleck is not currently diagnosed with any form of neurodiversity. I do want to give some props to Ben Affleck, who never makes his presentation cartoonish. And in fact, his representation of autism is fairly tasteful and even honestly recognizable. There are numerous points in both films where I find myself going, hey, I do that STEM, which is not something I can say about some autistic movies that don't appear to be getting their stemming from autistic people, but from other disabilities. No names currently mentioned here. The Accountant 2 is the second big autism movie that I'm aware of this year. And the other one is Unbreakable Boy, which I'm meaning to see and review because I hear it's fucking terrible. And it also stars Zachary Levi, who, as we all know, kind of a piece of shit nowadays. Let's take down the hair. So, let's cover the basics here. The Accountant 2, is it good? And how does it stack up to the first movie? Well, first of all, I like both movies a lot. In fact, on my recent rewatch of The Accountant 1, my major thought was, oh, damn, this movie really feels like it was always meant to have a sequel. In many ways, the Accountant movies feel like a book series that does not exist. You know the kind, very popular types. You know, you got your espionage books. Those are constantly available and selling all over the place. And both Accountant movies kind of feel like that. The first movie itself, a realization I had on my rewatch was that a large portion of it was character introduction and world building. And I'm all about that. The first movie, in many ways, is giving us the origin story and basic understanding of the character, the accountant, and setting up his dynamic with his brother, which comes as a twist in the first movie. However, in the second movie, his relationship with his brother is central. In the first movie, we spend a lot of time examining the trauma that the accountant has encountered through his life, being raised as a neurodiverse person, but by a man who clearly didn't understand neurodiversity, his father. But The Accountant 2 is much lighter in a lot of ways. In certain ways, now don't get me wrong, its action element is not much lighter, focusing instead on human trafficking. Well, its overall tone, however, is lighter because it is a lot more humor focused. With the major moments of the film, and part of what makes the film so entertaining are Ben Affleck's relationship with his brother, the accountant character, and John Barenthal's character, who is an assassin. And it's kind of an interesting, and they sort of have a fun little dynamic that I would describe as autism ADHD buddies, where throughout the film, Ben Affleck's character is quite clearly autistic, and John Barenthal's character, they never say it, but he feels pretty ADHD in a lot of ways. really, the whole movie runs on their connection, and it's really nice, honestly. The film does a great job. In many ways, the thing that's nice about, you know what? I'm going to save that for the autism part. The film is a fun ride as far as action movies go. If you like movies like any of the Bourne movies, any spy movies, James Bond, John Wick, any of those things, then The Accountant is going to have some stuff to offer you, plus disability. The Accountant 2 runs primarily on a story where the accountant is largely trying to find the murderer of his former friend, Ray King, while at the same time rescue a child from human traffickers that he believes is autistic, which is interesting because he has not met the child. However, he is certain of it. For some reason, the film does not explain to us, but then again, this is, I would be lying to you if autistic people didn't behave like this in real life, where we just get an idea in our heads, we can't get off of it, and sometimes it turns out that our idea was wrong. But in this movie, it's not wrong. But let's move along. The action in The Accountant 2 is a little bit more gun shooty than it is karate choppy, as we see in the previous film. Part of this is probably because Ben Affleck is, getting older. But also, in fairness, American cinema is better at shooting gunfights than they are at shooting fistfights anyways. So let's count this as a plus. Don't get me wrong, he still karates some people, which I'm always a fan of. The movie itself, the action, while not to the level that I would like in terms of cinematography, is certainly capable and doesn't at all have any of the problems that the recent Working Man had. The film is much more watchable than Working Man's action scenes because you can see them, essentially. While the film has a number of neurotypical villains, the film also introduces a sort of side character who is both a little bit bad and a little bit good, depending on where you are in the story. This character themselves has their own form of disability, having acquired savant syndrome. For those who don't know, this is when you become really good at something after receiving brain damage. Unfortunately, not everyone gets that when they get brain damage, but still, this is a real condition. And in the film, one of the characters is an assassin who has this condition, who is being sought out by Ray King. I won't go into the overall plot and story of why this person is important or how they tie into the rescue of this child, because I don't want to spoil that for you. And also, it's not really super important to my overall analysis, because I am, of course, here to analyze these things based on the autism itself. So let's talk about it. Let's get into the analysis. Warning, these analysis will come with spoilers. If you're already interested in seeing The Accountant, honestly, I highly recommend it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Definitely a better film than, like I said, The Working Man, a film that disappointed me. I also enjoyed it more overall than, say, Love Hurts, another action movie that came out this year. Honestly, The Accountant 2 so far might be the most solid action movie I've seen this year so far. Novocaine was good too, by the way, though. And the Captain America movie was a solid action romp as well. But let's get into that there, autism. So yes, I do have to dock points from the movie for featuring, a lot of neurotypical actors playing autistic characters. And I have to say, this is true of both films. It's unfortunate. And I do feel like Hollywood is moving in another direction with this. I have to say, that being said, both films are shockingly good with autism. Like, way better than other movies. Like, maybe the bar for autism on film is too low that we can have this film starring a couple of neurotypical people and it still be the best representation of autism I've seen in a minute. Now, of course, I'm leaving out biopics. It's been a long time since I saw the Temple Grandin biopic. So I'm not going to comment on that right now. But, anyways, let's focus on this. So, both movies feature autism. Let's talk about The Accountant 1 real quick. The autism in The Accountant 1 may be hard for some people to watch, and in fact, some people may initially have a negative reception to it. However, if you deeper analysis of the film, you will understand that the negative aspect is not what the film is trying to impart to you, but in fact the opposite. So the main story of the first Accountant movie is very autism centric. When we meet our characters, they are children waiting to be admitted into a special clinic for autistic children. In this scene, Ben Affleck's character's father refuses to put him in that clinic to get the help that he needs. This causes a rift in their family, prompting their mother to leave them. And this is clearly very traumatic for Ben Affleck's character, known as Christian Wolf, something that may or may not be his real name. Throughout the film, we see him adjusting and processing this trauma. Now, he is a full-grown adult for most of the film. Now, in the beginning of the movie, now, if I had one criticism of the movie, it is that maybe these movies feature puzzle pieces too much. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of autistic people who like puzzles, but as we all know, puzzle pieces are associated with them. And they're bad. That being said, there is an important scene early on in the film where when his family is looking at him possibly going to this clinic, he encounters a nonverbal autistic person. Basically, he starts to have a meltdown because he can't find the final piece to a puzzle he's been putting together upside down, meaning without the image context. However, a nonverbal autistic girl finds the piece and gives it to him, causing him to calm back down. And I'll come back to why this is important later. But essentially, in the film, he grows up to become an accountant. He's very good at math. He loves problem solving. He often will fixate on the problems he's trying to solve. When we meet him as an adult, he has clearly separated himself from the family that we knew, his brother and his father. As the film continues along, we find out that his father actually died in an encounter where him and his father got into a fight at his biological mother's funeral. This comes back up later, in the second film. I saw both movies relatively close together, so my brain is like, was that scene in the first movie or the second movie? But the point is that there's a scene where John Barenthal's character Brax at one point is like, why didn't you ask me to take you to our mother's funeral instead of our dad? Because in a way, that's what he thinks went wrong. He thinks he should have been the one to take his brother to the funeral instead of his dad. Throughout the first movie, we see flashbacks to the way his father raised him, and it is deeply problematic. In the film, we see Christian going through exposure therapy to sensory elements. However, the thing about this is that the film, in a way, is acknowledging that this shit doesn't work. And the film does this in two ways. One, he's like in his 30s and he's still doing it. If you become truly desensitized to stimuli, you don't need to continue doing those therapies later in life. The sensory therapies involve him essentially doing overexposure with flashing lights, loud music, and using essentially a metal stick on his muscles to form a physical sensory sensation. This is something that his father has taught him to do to try and cope with his sensory issues, because his father believes that his father is much more of a military man who believes that his children need to get used to the world, not the world get used to them.
Quick edit here. I never said the other ways that the film indicates that he knows this doesn't work. The one way is that he's not doing it in the sequel. He does not do the exposure therapy in the sequel, the sensory exposure therapy in the sequel, and I don't remember if I remember to say this, but essentially, one of the big reveals of the film is that he is essentially funding the same clinic that his father refused to take him to. Which this is actually a very important point that I forgot to mention, because essentially that shows us that he knows how autistic children should be treated, and that even though he loves his father, he knows that that's not the solution.
As we encounter the film continues to have more connections to disability than just autism. As Ben Affleck's character is called in as an accountant to a corporation who makes prosthetic limbs, it seems that there is a strange influx or outflux of money that does not make sense on the books, and he has been brought in to solve it. However, as he proceeds to solve this thing, people start to get killed who know things, and his project gets shut down. And he then also realizes that the life of the intern who discovered the anomaly in the numbers is also in danger. So, of course, he pulls out his combat training because he is a trained military man to save the day. The film also starts with has an early fun scene where adult Ben Affleck is helping an older couple essentially stretch the truth on their taxes to save their farm. It's a really nice moment and shows that his character is capable of empathy, which is something that some media denies to autistic people, even though we do and can have empathy. Empathy might be something that we need to learn in some cases, but autistic people can grasp the concept of wanting to be treated the way we want to treat others, no matter what some anti-autistic people might try to tell you. If I had to say one major complaint besides the neurotypical people playing autistic characters, the big one would be that, and this is actually true of both movies seem really uncomfortable saying the word autism. For starters, the first movie literally, I could tell it was autism they were representing. I could tell it was autism the whole way through. It was very clearly autism. Like, the representation is good, therefore the autism is easily recognizable as autism. And yet, they wait until way into the film for him to use the words, "I'm high functioning autistic." And that's only weird because autistic people are normally pretty forward with saying that they're autistic. Now, to be fair, not all autistic people are like this, but I'm one of the people who's like this, and lots of other autistic people are as well, because typically if you're diagnosed with autism later in life, you start to realize that it's more helpful to you to let people know that you are autistic. But also, by making him hold it like this for so fucking long, makes it feel like they think this is a twist, and autism should not be a twist. I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that otherwise the representation of autism in the first movie is really good. Not just in the fact that it's realistic and not overtly cartoonish, but let's address the fact that in many ways, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's Accountant 2. Let's get back to Accountant 1. The point is, overall, the representation of autism in this film is solid. Not too cartoony, not too exploitative. Now, to be fair, it does lead to the concept of him having math-based superpowers, but some autistic people are genuinely good at math. The truth is that an autistic person can be really good at anything if that thing becomes one part of their fixations. I didn't get the math one. Unfortunately, I got Batman, which is not as helpful for life. Yeah. Anyways. But the other thing that's nice about the autistic representation of the Accountant movies is that they acknowledge a spectrum. Do you remember that non-verbal autistic person? I know I just said that autism shouldn't be the twist, but this twist I actually thought was empowering. Allow me to explain. Throughout the first Accountant, we hear this voice on the other end who is like the accountant's setup person, the person who gets them their jobs, the person sets up their things, does all their hacking for them. And at the end of the movie, in a final scene that is actually really good and has one of the best speeches like about disability I've ever heard in a movie. Like literally, like it's this speech from the guy who runs the autism like clinic that he was supposed to go to, and he says this speech, and it's like, oh shit, he just nailed it. Like that's everything that autistic, that like disability, like recognition of disability in human beings, like strives for. All the equity, all the inclusion is in that sentence, and I mean that in a good way for people with disabilities. And this guy's speech nails it. I'm gonna steal that clip from somewhere and hopefully put it here.
Edit here. I couldn't find the clip, which bothers me for two reasons. One, I really wanted to include the footage. Also, because now there's a part of me that's like, am I overselling it? And I can't confirm if I'm overselling it or not because I got the movie from the library and I returned it already. So as far as I remember, it's a killer speech that nails it. But how whether I'm overselling that or not, don't know.
And that blew my mind. But that speech is leading up to the reveal that his hacker is the nonverbal autistic girl from the beginning of the film. And the thing about that twist is that, yes, it does make autism the twist, but it also empowers this character. None of the twists are technically done at the expense of the autistic characters. This movie represents autistic people as powerful and able to take care of themselves. Christian Wolf has a lot of human problems, but he is basically a functioning adult who just doesn't know how to make friends. Which brings us to The Accountant 2. Once again, The Accountant 2, even though we know he's autistic now, is also weirdly hesitant to use the word autistic. Like, why? Why are we hiding the word? What is that? What is that about? Like, the film is full of moments where Ben Affleck's character will say stuff like, my people. And, like, I know he means autistic kids, but, like, why can't we, why are we not saying it? Everyone knows. Everyone knows that this is an action movie focused about autism. Side note, weird subgenre of action movies is action movies that focus on some type of disability. I might do a longer video on this later after I've seen more of them. I've only seen a handful so far. But like, why not say the word? Don't be afraid to say the word. The word is, autism is beautiful, baby. Say it. Acknowledge it. We know he's autistic. We saw the first film. Putting the word savant, side note, putting the word savant on your marketing to describe him isn't better than saying autism. Like, I don't know what, like, savant implies a deficit that goes along with, like, a super ability. So, like, it's not like, say, because, like, on the first DVD box, I noticed it used the word savant on the back instead of autistic. And it's like, that's not better. That's not better than autistic. I don't know who's telling you that is better than autistic. Autistic people generally want to be recognized as autistic. It's a big deal now. Get with the times. Let's go back to The Accountant 2. The Accountant 2, like I said, also features a character who actually is a savant because they have acquired savant syndrome from brain damage. This character is pretty badass. I like that they're bringing in other forms of disability into their universe. I think that that's kind of cool. And there's even a rumor that they at one point were looking at doing an accountant TV show that focused instead on the network of autistic hacker kids and the various other accountants who might be out in the world. I love this idea. I am here for more accountant shit. Bring it on. I love it. And this would also be a great opportunity to hire real autistic actors if you do that series. Be a good way to give them a chance to get famous and start a career as actors. Just throwing that out there, Hollywood. But let's get back to more of the representation in this movie. The Accountant 2 is much more lighthearted. And actually, I think this is good. The first film is heavily about him focusing on his trauma. But this film is about him connecting with his brother. That's something that human connection is something that we autistic people struggle with. And I really, really think that that's kind of a beautiful thing for this film to be about. The other thing is it takes the trope of bonding with your autistic sibling that is in your autistic or disabled sibling that is in so many fucking movies, and it flips it on its head. In this film, we see the many ways in which he is more of an adult than his brother Brex, who, yes, I said is probably ADHD, but like, the film doesn't say that. The film's implication is probably that he is in fact neurotypical. But I don't know. The film hasn't confirmed it one way or the other, and it's not the same as me being able to look at what Ben Affleck is doing and going, oh yeah, he's doing autism. But the film really allows us to see them develop that thing as equals instead of, and this is the thing, instead of it being that dynamic of, oh, I'm your brother and I feel put upon because I have to put up with you and your disability. Because that's so many movies. That's so many fucking movies are that. It's just some neurotypical person bonding, like being frustrated with a person with disabilities until they learn to love them. And I understand why that message is important. But it's important for neurotypical people. It's not important for me. This movie puts them on equal footing. They've both been living in the world. They've both been taking care of themselves. And yeah, Brax is annoyed by a lot of his autistic eccentricities. But like, it's not played in the same way where like, he is a burden. In fact, it's the opposite. Brax is hurt because his brother has not reached out to him more. He wants the connection. It's not that same thing where it's just like the brother has to take care of him. Christian Wolf doesn't need to be taken care of. What he needs is someone there to help him do stuff like go out and dance at a bar. That's the thing an autistic person would like your help with. Well, at the same time, we get to see their relationship come together. It's nice. In many ways, we've seen this trope in lots of other films about disability before. But here, it's good. Here, it's not like a weird asymmetrical thing where we see where we see this neurotypical person just being forced to learn how to love this person with disabilities, and that's the whole fucking movie. Here, they're on equal. Like I said, here they're equals. They both want to connect with each other. Neither of them is a burden on the other. If anything, Braxton is slowing down Christian Wolf. Because Braxton doesn't have that fixation that his brother has to go out and save this child. He doesn't have the same moral dynamic that Ben Affleck's character has going on. Doesn't have the same fixations. And actually, what's fun is that the autistic character is portrayed as having more empathy than the neurotypical brother. Once again, I do feel like his character has ADHD, but the film never says it, and why should I expect it to say it? It's resistant to say autism. But the film starts out with a fun sequence where we find out that Christian Wolf, Ben Affleck's character, has essentially used math to cheat at a dating app meetup. And the people who are running the dating app meetup notice because he has the most matches and yet walks away with 0 dates after any of his interviews. And the scene is quite entertaining as we see these neurotypical people just try to launch their insane, irrational bullshit at him, and he's just like, oh no, well, love at first sight isn't real. Because it's not. The second movie doesn't have that same, like, great speech at the end that encapsulates disability so well as the first film. But, like, in honesty, like, this is still great because we don't get to see these stories about autistic people. We don't get to see these stories about autistic people where the autistic person is this brave, this forward, this able to take his own power. Sure, he struggles with normal autistic things like dating, but at the same time, we also get to see him as a person. And then also we get to see these other people on different points in the spectrum who are all hackers who help him. Because in this film, we see that the hacker from the first film, she has in fact started teaching other autistic children to do her job, some of whom are verbal and some of whom are not. I can't actually remember if they were all verbal or not. But she is continuing to be nonverbal.
Real quick edit here. I forgot to mention this about the film too, which is that the hacker lady, I think her character's name is Justine, but I always just think of her as the voice who calls him Dreamboat. In the first movie, she made some choices in her. She was a little bit overly animated, in my opinion, in the first movie. In this movie, she's physically, she toned down some of her profound autistic traits. Because I did feel like she was getting sort of nearly line in the first movie, but they've been toned down in this one, which does make me feel justified in feeling that they were that they were overdone in the first one.
So overall, this is what I like about The Accountant. So many movies that feature characters with disabilities are focused in on the exploitation of those disabilities to get a sympathetic response from the audience. And that's not really good for anybody, just so you know. But The Accountant 2 is not here to do that. And The Accountant 2 is even less here to do that. The Accountant 2 lets an autistic person just be at the center of a good action movie. And you know what? I'm here for it. Bring on The Accountant 3. Bring on The Accountant TV show. Hell, I know a autistic actor who'd love to be an accountant himself. So yes, do I love The Accountant 2? I adore The Accountant 2. Now, that being said, I'm not saying it's the greatest action movie ever. I've seen better action movies. But it's a good action movie. And it's a shockingly good action movie about autism. So, yeah. I'm here for this shit. Hats off to The Accountant. I haven't looked up how many non-autistic people are in The Accountant 2 versus in The Accountant 1. I previously found an article saying that one of the children actors in the first Accountant movie was autistic, but I can't find it anymore, so I don't know. Honestly, the only thing that will make these Accountant movies better, in my opinion, is A, the stories stay good and the representation of autistic people stay good, but also, that you hire a few autistic actors. You know what I'm saying? Let's do it. Let's do it, Hollywood. Make this franchise sing. Just to be clear, I'm not saying I want a musical one. Just in case anyone thought I was saying that. Thank you for tuning in to my takes on The Accountant and The Accountant 2, a film I highly recommend. Please like and subscribe. If you would like to contact the program, you can email me at rubenuncut@gmail.com. If you watch it on YouTube, please make sure to ring that bell for notifications. Thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful whatever, wherever, whoever you are.